Welcome to the podcast. This is episode one of a series on F1 2021. Today's episode, we talk about F1 2020, the season that was a bit unusual and fun and dramatic. And oh my God, there was so much happening in that year. The year itself was a bit unusual. So we'll talk about the whole year itself, F1 2020. We are your hosts. I am Akash,
Hi, I'm Sarang.
and we'll just share our thoughts and talk about things here. It started off very interesting, right? I mean, the livery started coming up. There was Ocon who came back. The liveries were fun, amazing. Merck came back with the brand black.
Not really. They didn't come out with black. They had come out with silver, if you remember. I know it has been a very long year, but they came out
Oh,
with silver
yeah.
and then they changed in between before the season actually started because of all the BLM
You're right,
protests
you're
that
right.
were going on and Hamilton's support for them and with the whole We Race as One initiative. That's when they switched to black, which
That's
was really
true, that's
surprising.
true, that's true. But before that, like coming out of 2019, what were your hopes and expectations on 2020?
2020, I wasn't really very hopeful about 2020 season, to be honest. Mainly because I think towards the end of 2019 it was quite clear that Ferrari is not going to be the top dog in 2020. It was clear, I think, right from Austin in 2019, where things started going bad for them. There were rumors about them cheating with the engine. They had to reduce their power, and
Yeah, I
the rest is
remember that.
history. So, yeah, honestly, I was under the impression that Mercedes is going to dominate, which we all know what happened. Red Bull would be second, exactly what happened. Though third and fourth is what surprises me a lot. And I think apart from the first two teams, everything I'd expected like didn't come out to be true at all.
Yeah, right. Like the last season was so, every race was so thrilling. We had, again, I'm not sure here, but like 15 out of the 20 drivers taking podium, which was such an amazing thing to see. At the same time, obviously, you're right, Merc dominance has continued. The thing that flipped for me for Ferrari was, I think,
Mhm,
Italy 2019, where up until that mid season, Vettel
mhm.
was in good contention, and then things just went south from there.
Yeah.
Pre-testing season, Merck comes out with a dash
Mhm.
system, and to be honest, like that was pre-COVID time, so I was like, yeah, this again, there is no doubts here, this team's gonna dominate, to that extent that even other teams were surprised and shocked with what they've produced. It was like, it's, yeah, they're gonna be at the top now, let the rest fight.
Yep. 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 I remember when DAS had come out, F1 FIA was ready with the rule to ban DAS in 2021. So most cities pretty much knew that DAS was going to be legal only in 2020, because from what I've heard, they kind of do work with FIA while coming up with these innovations, because they don't want to spend millions on a new technology which is going to be illegal. They do kind of share details with FIA and try to confirm that it's legal. So they knew
Right.
that 2020 is the only year that they can use it. But to me, it is the past few years have created the stable platform for Mercedes for them to push the boundaries as much as they can, and they don't care. Like, they
Yeah.
can just take the risk.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely bang on there, right? Like you've achieved so much that at this point it's just point for innovation, right? Win, don't win, it's just points for innovation.
Mhm.
And that, at least awestruck, I was awestruck by it, because it's like, oh my god.
Well, when you're about more than 100 points, 150 points ahead of the second best team, Yeah, you can take a few risks.
Right? I mean, at least two spots out of the three on that podium are always
Yep.
fixed. But pre-testing has been interesting because all throughout the pre-testing time, it was clear that Ferrari is not doing good. There are potential issues in there, as you also said. What's interesting is they had a management
Hmm.
shift right before, like I think 2019 is when they had a management shift. The season started
Hmm.
off fine, and it's been south since then.
Yep. Though the manager changed for Ferrari in 2019, I don't really attribute their failures to the new management, because from many reports it has been kind of evident that all the cheating that they were doing was under development for a couple of years now. And the previous team
Hmm.
principal, I forget what his name was.
Oh, Maurizio, yeah.
So
Ah,
I don't really attribute the failures to Mattia, because when he took the helm at the team, he was inherited this issue which he had to deal with, and he kind of knew that once this is exposed and they lose some horsepower from their engine, they are going to be in this situation.
that's interesting. So they had this long time coming.
That's what people say.
But yeah, moving on from the preseason testing to the actual season, right? So
Hmm.
at least I was in mixed reactions because we waited 3 4 long months for that first race. In a parallel world, COVID struck. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
people are dying, and countries are going into lockdown. But then there is this silver lining where everyone has already assembled in Melbourne City Park, and the race is gonna
Hmm.
happen. And then you have your first case with someone in Mclaren, which makes FIA and Australian GPC go, yeah, all right, pack your bags. We're gonna lock this down. What were your thoughts then? What was going through your
I
mind?
still remember the lockdown was on. Uh, Obviously, everybody was bored out of their minds. F1 was something that I was looking forward to. Uh, and I woke up in the morning on the day of the race. I opened Reddit and I see the headline, the race is cancelled. And I'm like, seriously? I mean, you were there, right? You could have just finished it. Anyways, no, lives were at stake, so that was the right thing to do. Yeah, I was a little worried at that time whether we'll have a 2020 season, but I'm glad that they got a new calendar, managed all the logistics, and got the season going with a lot of testing, following all guidelines, and they did it really well. I mean, considering how much they travel around, the number of cases were not that bad within their F1 bubble as such.
Yeah, I mean, amazing health regulations that came in as soon as they came back to the season, right? After what was like a heartbreak for millions of fans, I think the redemption part was they brought back older tracks, or as we call it, like vintage tracks, to both F1 fans amusement, and I think the drivers loved it, right? Like after every vintage track race, I think we've heard each and every driver say, why don't we race more
Mhm.
on these?
F1 season started again with 22 track calendar within the short amount of time that they had, which itself is a very great feat. Few things that were like really interesting about the season were some of these older legacy tracks which came back. Tracks like Portimao, Imola, Mugello, and Nürburgring. All of these tracks have featured on the F1 calendar, not in the past couple of years, but have featured in many F1 calendars and are one of the fan favorites. I'm glad they got an opportunity, because me being relatively a new fan of F1. I have not seen any of these tracks before. All the tracks from my memory are the tracks that have come along in the past few years, which most of the tracks are good that F1 always visits, but I'm glad we got a couple different tracks because that really gave that threw off all these teams, right? I feel that, like, since all of the tracks are repeated year after year, these teams have perfected their laps around these tracks so well. They have so much data about it. That's why you see the same standings everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And on that note, right, like everything you're saying is so visible because teams came to these new tracks, Mugello, Nürburgring, Imola, and it was visible in the practice sessions itself that they are learning these tracks. They were spinning off, they were trying to understand what works best for the team. In sort of like a computer science way, it felt like these cars were hard coded for the 21 tracks or the 20 tracks that were on the calendar. And then this is just a new test case that was thrown at them, and everyone's trying to figure out how to pass these tests. And interestingly, we saw a few incidents come up in these, right? Like Mugello had a horrendous crash on they had two restarts, and then the second restart was just quite scary. So
Yeah, and not just that. If you remember, when is the last time you remember a race getting black flagged? Before 2020, I don't
oh
remember
yeah.
any year when races got black flagged. I had almost forgotten that there was a flag for that. I had forgotten that there were restarts, which were standing starts. This was a very crazy year, and I'm
And two of them in a single race, that too, right?
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yes, wow, that was Portimao, right? I think it was Portimao.
Yeah, Portimao or Mugello, one of those two.
All of these tracks really delivered. All of these new tracks delivered, and I think going forward, F1 should learn a lesson from this. I understand the reason why they keep visiting the same tracks. Obviously, it's all got to do with money. After all, F1 is a business. I understand they have to maximize their profits, and that's why they visit the places which offer the most amount of money. But at the end of the day, they should remember that this is an sport, and the entertainment value is just as important as the money is. You're not going to make money if people are not going to watch your races. And if you want to keep things interesting, especially given the Mercedes dominance that has been in the past years, they have to mix things up. What they I feel they should be doing is they should have one or two slots each race, I mean each year, and those should be on a rotating track basis, and they should keep changing those because that will add a new dimension. And as you said, teams can't hard code their cars to tracks that way.
Coming back to the entire season, right? I mean, we started
Mhm,
off with the expectation that Merck was gonna dominate. I mean, we knew that
mhm,
from pre-testing. The interesting part was we had some hunch that Red Bull was gonna be close second. It
mhm.
wasn't close, but it was still second. The interesting part were all the teams after that. Like the midfield already started getting better since 2019, and it just came so close in 2020. So, like going off each team, Merck, right? Hamilton, Bottas. Bottas starts off 2020
Mhm.
the same way he does night 2019, wins the first race, and then is on podium. So that's a win for Mercedes, but it didn't work out quite the way he wanted.
Botas, I feel Botas every year comes in, he finishes the first race, and he's like, "Yes, my job here is done, and I can just rest now, and the season's done for me." I mean, he's a good racer. He is talented. I don't deny that. I mean, Hamilton is Hamilton, and it's not easy to be his teammate. But I don't know, man. I'm tired of Hamilton not having any competition.
No, bang on there. I mean, the fun on this sport, and we can see that in McLaren, is the drivers challenge each other, right, to push each other. Here, I feel Hamilton's motivated by either matching up with Schumacher, or being number one, and being that greatest driver of all time. That's his motivating factor. And maybe a few percentages with Bottas pushing, but I don't quite see that on the track, right? Like, there isn't much Bottas versus Hamilton rivalry that we've seen with Hamilton and others in the past.
Yeah, I wish there was something like Rosberg right now. I miss Rosberg for that.
Or Alonso versus Hamilton too. I'd love to see that.
I agree. Well, Bottas, I think he had decent season. I mean, he was in the best car. He delivered the podiums that Merck needed, and he did a good enough job that Mercedes is not gonna replace him. They're not gonna, break the winning formula. They don't want to add spice to their curry right now.
No, that's a very interesting point, because what Bottas does for Mercedes enables Mercedes to be that constructor champion that they continue being. And we've
Mhm.
seen an example of this with Red Bull, where it's completely dominated by Max Verstappen. Have they
Yeah.
had their second driver also on podiums contesting, while Max is contesting Hamilton, have the second driver contest Bottas? There could have been if not for drivers championships, at least for constructor championships, we would have seen 2020 have a good competition between Mercedes and Red Bull. But thoughts on Red Bull?
Hmm.
They've continuously, in the past 2 years, they've changed their second driver. What do you think about Red Bull?
Yeah. I think Red Bull is fully invested into Max. That's very clear. Red Bull is Max Verstappen, I would say. And I would say it makes sense from their perspective in a way. Though, okay. So, Pierre Gasly, let's talk about him just a little bit. Pierre Gasly wasn't Red Bull. He obviously wasn't able to match up with Max. He was not able to get his arms out. He was not able to defend his positions, and that's why he got the boot. Albon came in. He seemed promising at the start. If I remember the first race, I think he was punted out by Hamilton. And I think
That
Max
happened twice.
was, yeah, that happened twice, yes. I think Max had some engine problems or something in the first race, and Albon was, he was on the path of winning the race, and then he got punted out. After that, I think things just kept going south for him. He got a couple podiums, but it just wasn't enough, I think. And what happens is, for Max, Hamilton, say for example, he has this teammate who helps him to stay ahead, in the sense that people have to go through Bottas first to reach Hamilton. And that does help you a lot, because you don't have to constantly worry about, getting undercut or overcut during your pit stop. Like, there's somebody else who is going to defend the position for you on the track, and that peace of mind, I think, really helps Hamilton push even more, which Max doesn't get, because he does not have the same stability on his side.
Right. And then, I mean, Max himself, right, while we talk about these things, and him being hot-headed, and previous season, whatever aggression, and every other driver spoken about him, but he does show promising results. I mean, he has been as consistent, if not more, as Hamilton or Bottas, to that matter. He's been on that podium way too many times in 2020 as well, barring either technical issues or any incidents that would have happened. But I mean, he's been consistent. And we are right. I mean, Alex Albon, poor guy. I mean, he missed out on two podiums for whatever reasons. He did get his redemption, but overall, there doesn't seem that promising factor that you would expect from driver two at a team like Red Bull.
Hmm. Yep, I would agree. Okay, so actually, I don't want to skip over Hamilton since we went on to Red Bull because he is the champion of 2020, and I do want to talk a little bit about him before we move ahead. This season is honestly where Hamilton possibly won me over. I have been a critic of Hamilton for a while. I still am, but I mean, yes, I always did kind of respect his dedication because Lewis Hamilton is nothing if he's not dedicated, and the race which he outshone everyone else on the field was Turkey. Odds were completely stacked against him. He did not have a good strategy. Mercedes was not good on that track at all. I remember, I think both Bottas and Hamilton were far behind in the field when the race started, and the call that he made of not switching from inters to dries and skipping that pit stop, and you know wearing out his tires just enough to have those hybrid inter and dry tires that he kind of managed to keep those at, where he had the advantage of the inters with the grooves on the sides and the flat spots in the center of the tire. He really shone in that race and he won that race. That's where i I was fully convinced that okay, he does deserve the respect that is given to him.
Yeah, and to add to that crown, I mean that's the race where he got a seventh title too, right? So that was a true mark of someone who knows his stuff, because it's not easy to be that consistent, and that shows experience in the sport when everything's against you, but you're still taking calls against probably your team principal and your team engineers, and you know your car more than they do because you're in that cockpit. And that showed, right?
Mhm.
Like him getting that seventh title,
Hmm.
that showed.
Yep. Yep. I mean, he could have won that title by even like being seventh in the race, but
Yeah,
that's the thing, that's what I appreciate about him. His dedication is insane. He always wants to win no matter what. A lot of times he comes off as whiny, I would say, in his super focus of winning the race always. But yeah, that's Hamilton for you.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I've also had my share of criticism for that guy, but yeah, his consistency and dedication sort of shows, right? And that changes your perspective about him. Because that race, I mean, Saturday, what Racing Point, Stroll Juniors on the pole, he's probably going to win this. He's also leading the race, and then as you said, right, like Hamilton taking the call for not switching the tires when the team was telling him, whereas Stroll did. Yeah, that was the turning.
One quick thing about that race, if you noticed, the people who gained the most in that race were the people who were able to manage their tires.
Yeah,
Perez was one person. He came in second or third, I forget, but he made the best out of it. He was not supposed to be on the podium on that race. I think he was somewhere seventh or eighth throughout the race, and then he made the call of not pitting, and he managed his tires to the end in a similar way with what Hamilton did, and
yeah.
dividends paid off for him. All right. Okay, let's get back to Red Bull. I think we discussed about Albon. We discussed about Max. Do you have anything to add about Max? Otherwise, we could move on to
No,
Leclerc.
I genuinely want to see that guy win more podiums. I do find him hot headed, but I like it. I mean, he's pushing the team that's dominating, and that's what I like to see. That's
Mhm.
the competition that keeps me continue watching. Otherwise, if Merck was just doing and it was everyone else playing, it lacks that factor of why are you watching the sport? Are you watching it for everyone else?
Yep, I completely agree. And one more thing which I really want to credit Max for is up until 2019, I think. Oh no, 2018. Max always has had this image, as you've also called him, a lot of times today. Hot headed. That's what you always remember when you think about Max. And he has always
Yeah.
had this image among everyone that he is hot headed. But if you notice something, ever since the crash that he had with Ocon, after that incident, you will see a changed Max. He has changed so much after that. He has kept his head cool in every single race that he has been. The only place where I saw him lose his patience again was at Portimao, when he was on the path of getting the lead of the race, and then he spun out while trying to overtake Perez.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if we are talking about Hamilton's consistency, there is a visible evolution in terms of how Max has progressed in his career, right? Like
Mhm.
joining in F1, and as I've called him a couple of times, hot headed. But since then, we've seen his hot headedness convert to aggression,
Hmm.
convert to wins,
Hmm.
being like that consistent winner for Red Bull that he is now. And I
Hmm.
see him there for a long time, unless someone tries to buy him off of Red Bull. But regardless, in his career, I do see him winning those world championships, hopefully in the
Hmm.
near future. But
For
talking
sure.
of young drivers, right? Like moving down the list, we've got McLaren, which
Hmm.
to my surprise was just so amazing last season. Both drivers just amazing. Lando Norris,
Absolutely.
Sainz, just amazing.
Absolutely. McLaren, when they started the season off, I did not expect them to be on number three at all.
Yeah,
Uh, they they're one of the teams who, if you think about all the races, except for the one obviously where Pierre Gasly won, and I think Sainz was second. But apart from that, you can't think of McLaren being in a very dominant position throughout the season. But just by completing races, having both their drivers within points, and having that consistency, got them on the third place.
yeah, and that race, what a race, right? Like I so felt that science emotion when that checkered flag went off. I like one more or maximum of two more laps, and he would have had him. It was so there. What I like is what we've been talking about is missing from the other two teams, where we've got Lando and Science have that chemistry and that push. Like it's not that we've seen one or the other dominate during the season. It's been so much that both of them have been pushing each other. We've seen Lando finish fourth. Carlos has obviously gone on to be on the podium as well, but it's just been amazing at McLaren.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm just trying to look for the driver standings from 2020, and I want to take a look. I want to see where Sainz ended up sixth. Okay, and Lando was ninth. Sainz obviously has the advantage of winning podiums, and second place got him all the points that he needed to like jump forward. That's the surprising thing, right? Like if you see, Sergio Perez was fourth, yet Racing Point is not the third team. They are on number four, and that shows where consistency is so important within
Yeah,
the sport. It's not just about being on the podium. At the end of the day, winning races doesn't earn you money. The constructors championship earns you money, and getting your team up there is so important for the next season, because that is going to help your development for the next season.
yep, yep. Just a small correction there. I
Mhm.
thought Lando was fourth, but there was a time penalty to Hamilton on that Austrian race, which
Oh
made him
yeah.
leapfrog to the podium. So both the drivers have had
Yes.
podium with consistent performance. And
Yes,
that
that's
has
correct.
paid off, right? Like to everyone's
Yep.
surprise, we've seen McLaren come back so strong to what it was, right? What, two
Mhm.
years back when Alonso was on the team,
GP2
all
engine.
we all remember those radio messages. Albeit to his credit, Alonso was helping McLaren build up again from where they've come, and it shows.
Hmm.
With
Yep.
both these drivers just performing amazing. Brown at the helm of it, also pushing these drivers.
And also the very fact that they hired the ex Porsche boss from the WEC, Seidel. He, I feel, has played a pivotal role in the team. He has been a superstar at Porsche. I'm sure he's doing the same over here as well. And I'm actually quite excited to see what McLaren does in the coming season. Because yeah, the past few seasons have been spectacular for them. Let's find
Hey,
out.
the banter's gonna continue, right? We'll probably talk more about this in a future episode too, but the banter's gonna continue with Ricardo, who replaces
Oh yeah,
Science. Yeah,
oh yeah.
we'll get to that too in a future episode.
Though actually, I'm not too sure. So one thing I've noticed is that every team usually has one funny guy and one serious guy, and I think this is breaking that balance, because now you have two immature guys in the same team, and I don't know what's gonna happen with that.
And then some team's gonna have two mature guys, and it's gonna be a serious team.
Yeah, that's right.
uh,
All right. Anyways, let's move on to the next team on the 2020 constructors. That is Racing Point.
Racing Point.
Racing Point has been a topic of discussion for a couple of seasons now.
Yeah.
With all that went down, with changes in ownership, the team going into administration, Perez helping the team to, not going bankrupt, making the deal go through with Stroll, and everything. Perez has been a very integral part of this team for a while now.
Yeah, that too. And then the other controversy of them being Merc too, using Merc engines directly. So yeah, I mean, in and off F1, they've just been in discussions quite a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Tracing Point, as people used to call them. Yeah, the Racing Point has had its own set of controversies, but regardless of that, they have been pretty good through the years. Racing Point has always been known to have, being a small team and having very limited resources, they have achieved a lot in the past years, and you can see that as they are rising through the constructors. Now, I think this season they had a couple of freaks of bad luck with Lance, especially. They had a couple mechanical issues, because of which I feel they fell short on the constructor series and lost out. Also, I think they had to. Oh yeah, one more important thing. I think the point about Racing Point that you said, if you remember, they were fined in terms of points, and they had to forego a couple points for the starting few races, if I remember correctly, and that lost them a couple spots on the table. I think that's because it was uncovered that they had copied the design of the
Yeah,
rare brake ducts or something like that, and those parts
yeah,
are not
yeah, yeah.
visible, so that kind of proved that they had some exchange of information with Mercedes.
Yeah, you're bang on. I mean, besides like a $500,000 fine, there was also like deducting 15 points ish from
Mhm.
the constructor champion. How much was the
Yep.
difference between the spot ahead? Because they
From
could
what I see,
have.
it was 14 points. So yes,
Oh,
definitely,
that could have
that's
gotten
exactly what
them.
lost them.
Yeah, that's right.
They could have been 196.
Perez himself also has had his share of turbulence, if you will, in this season, right? The quitting, in quotes, session saw Perez in the limelight after all
Mhm.
the shuffling that went about. And I don't know if that gave him the kick or what was it, but we've just seen that guy change mid season.
Yep, I think Perez has always been that guy who's there when the pieces are falling, and he's always there to catch those pieces. He never loses the opportunity when it like knocks on his door, and that guy has many a times been on the podium when he has no place on the podium at all. I really appreciate that
So
guy,
yeah, I mean, Racing
Perez.
Points just been spectacular. We've seen that consistency and that fire from both Stroll Jr. and Perez, that we've seen them either contest and even win some podiums. Perez going on to win his first ever podium. Everyone was emotional. Just spectacular performance from Perez, and everyone starting to talk about, hey, let's have this guy in 2021. And I had my fingers crossed until the news came out. But talking about Racing Point's spectacular performance, we cannot overshadow Renault's bouncing back, right? Renault's been Ricardo's just trying to push that team and lift that team so much, it's visible. And Ocon, I feel like that guy has been in the shadow.
Oh yeah, Sakir Grand Prix. He was second. Perez was first. Ocon was second. Lance Stroll was third. Okay, interesting. And Daniel was fifth on that race. And Perez won the race by a large margin. By the way, he won the race by 10 seconds. That is that is Hamilton level
Would you have
margin.
imagined a Renault car coming second?
No, no, not at all. I mean, the season that Renault has had before, I did not imagine Renault to be fifth this season.
Exactly. I mean,
Uh,
2019, and then pre-season testing. I was like, yeah, Renault's gonna have a similar season. Poor Ricardo, he switched from Red Bull to Renault with super high hopes, but only to see that yes, that team's just kept surprising, and both their drivers have again been like very consistent.
every time when somebody talks about Ricardo crying about going from Red Bull to Renault, I think about that meme. If you remember that guy lying on the floor and wiping his clouds with like banknotes, and that's exactly Ricardo with his $20 million paycheck that he got from Renault. He does not care a damn. He's his account is more than enough for offset all the races he did not win. I think Renault was a very good what do you say transition team for him. McLaren is going to be a very good place for him, and I definitely see Ricardo doing good in the coming season. And yeah, obviously he did do great in Renault, but still.
With the way Renault's progressing, but then the other way where how McLaren's been progressing, it's it's evident in the way he jumped, right? As soon as Vettel exited and Sainz jumped the gun on Ferrari, you could see Ricardo like, yeah, I'm moving to McLaren. Bye.
Yes, I remember the whole dominoes that was going on when as soon as the news for Signs broke, then the news for Ricardo broke, and very soon I think everybody was pretty much sure what was going to be the next news. That was Vettel
Yeah.
replacing Perez, and that's exactly what happened. And talking about Vettel, let's move on to
Mhm.
Ferrari, which had a underwhelming season, and they started off very bad, and then they slowly were kind of creeping up the table. I'm glad they at least reached sixth, and they didn't reach. I mean, they were not beat by their B teams, so that's working in their favor. What are your thoughts about Ferrari's season?
That's true. It was quite an underwhelming performance, somewhat of a film following a trailer from that preseason testing, where again it was somewhat evident that they have some internal issues. Again, I don't know how true it is, but it's somewhat visible that there is driver favoritism happening between Leclerc and Vettel. I mean, benefit of doubt to Ferrari because it's not that one driver is better than the other. Leclerc's proved himself time and again. He's been a self
Mhm,
critic of himself, sometime overly so, but he's been a self critic of
mhm,
himself, pushing Vettel to the limit, pushing Ferrari to the limit. And on the other side, Vettel doing the
mhm,
same because he
mhm,
knows he wants to win that title
mhm,
championship fight with Hamilton. A good part for
mhm,
Ferrari with some of the incidents that did happen during some of the races. They were able to creep up to fourth places, sometimes
mhm,
even third, with Vettel winning one of those races. So overall,
mhm.
there were quite a lot of positive movements. Vettel saw it coming. His contract was ending, chose to leave, which was also somewhere expected by fans. And yeah, until he had a place to go, it was all fingers crossed. Let's get this guy a team.
Yeah, definitely. And it was very evident that Vettel was not having a good time at Ferrari. I could see it in his interviews, the way he talked, the way he behaved. It was very evident that the relationship between the driver and the team had turned sour, and they pretty much were just tolerating each other at that point. And I'm kind of glad for both Ferrari and Vettel's sake that they parted ways, because I feel both of them will come out, better out of this. So one thing which I really wanted to talk about was Leclerc. Very similar to Hamilton, I've not been a fan of Leclerc ever since he's joined Ferrari. A lot of times, yeah, I mean, he is a great driver, but in a similar vein to Hamilton, due to his constant need of being number one in things, he comes off as being whiny a lot of times. I i appreciate the fact that he is really self-critical, but sometimes, as you said, right, sometimes he sounds really overly self-critical. And at that point, for me, it feels like it's that he is being disingenuous about it. He is trying to put up a face in front of people of being self-critical. But regardless, I think through the season, he has proved himself as the number one driver for Ferrari. He has taken those opportunities. He has been on podiums when he shouldn't have been, when clearly Ferrari were not doing good, and he still somehow was there, picking up those third positions, fourth positions, fifth positions. And that shows, right? That shows on the driver standings. He came up, where was Leclerc? I forget. Let me see.
I mean, most of the races he's finished ahead of Vettel. So,
I think Leclerc was eighth. Wow. Okay.
huh,
Yeah.
that's not bad.
Props to
That's
him.
not bad.
Yep.
The only heartfelt feeling that goes out for Vettel here is I remember an interview where Hamilton was like, every driver's got some other thing working for them outside of the racetrack. And for all the years that I've known Vettel, all he knows is cars and F1 and racing. And that banter was sort of visible when you could see Vettel and Raikkonen just fooling around with each other. And then as soon as Raikkonen moves, it's like your one of your siblings just goes away, and you can see Vettel and Leclerc
Yep.
not being the
Yeah.
right of their teammates. But nonetheless, there
Yep.
were some amazing moments for Ferrari. Reddit's got to troll him quite a lot with Sebinella. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. That's
Spinella.
continued for the.
Spinella.
That's the one. Yes, that's continued. So we've seen that old Vettel not getting lost in 2020, and yeah, the guy shifting to Racing Point, which is now what Aston Martin. I just excited to see him back on racetrack and
Yep.
not going home. Down the list we
Yep.
have Alpha Tauri.
Gasly has been fantastic. He is the driver of the season for me. my heart goes out to him. He has struggled so much. Have you? Okay, so there's this podcast that F1 does with Beyond the Grid. I
Yeah,
had heard this episode of Gasly on it. I've heard his life story and the struggles that he's been through. Uh, I'm glad this guy made it. He has had a horrible time at Red Bull. He didn't even get to complete the season in Red Bull, which was really bad. And I can't even imagine getting kicked out of a team in the middle of the season and still coming up back up the next season and giving your 100%. And he did that, and it shows. He beat Kvyat almost every single
yeah,
race.
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and yeah, it was just 10 out of 10, I think, from him.
Yeah, bang on. I mean, I think he's found home at AlphaTauri, and that showed as soon as times for contract renewals came. I think he didn't even blink an eye, and there was news that Gasly's going to continue
Yep.
at AlphaTauri, which I think is the right decision at this point in his career because he's had the other side of the experience not working out good for him, coming back, and then getting that P2 in 2019 and coming back
Mhm.
stronger with a P1. Everyone cheering that French win after a long, long time. Yeah, he had it long coming, and I am happy for him.
Oh yeah, definitely. Moving on to Daniel Kvyat. I don't think 2020 was his
Yeah,
season. He was constantly somewhere around near Gasly, but never beating him. Nothing spectacular. No podiums. Nowhere was he close to podiums, and that pretty much showed. Uh, Yuki replaced him, so yeah,
yeah,
there it
yeah.
goes. Uh, yeah, I don't have a lot to say about him.
Yeah, there isn't much to add for Daniel Kvyat.
Yeah.
Only Russian on the grid. I would have loved to see him fight a lot, but well, I guess 2020 wasn't his year.
Yeah. Well, moving on down the list to Alpha Romeo. Uh,
My favorite man in the
Kimi,
squad is in this team. Man, I love this guy.
the
Um,
Iceman. Yep.
yeah,
Kimi
Iceman.
Raikkonen. What to say about him? He has been with. I think this is the second year with Alpha for him, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, correct. Yep, yep. It's the second year with Alpha. He comes on the track. He does his job. He goes home, and he does his job as well as he can with the car that's given to him. Alpha has been struggling this season. They have constantly been at the back of the grid. Though somehow I've seen Kimi somehow make it till Q2 a lot of times, and I think once he reached Q3. I think so.
yeah.
I don't recall exactly. I think once he did reach Q3.
I
Uh,
remember that as well. Let me pull the team
yeah,
details.
and even in one of the races, I don't recall which, where in the first starting lap, Kimi made up some 10 positions or something. And obviously, he lost all those positions soon because he was driving Alpha. But yeah.
The best part about that race, oh my god! After that race comes this post-race interview, and then he's driving. He's gaining these positions, and he says, "What were the other drivers doing?" And everyone's struggling for this grip.
Oh yes, I also remember Verstappen talking about this after the race. So I think he was having, I think he was second or third on the track that day, and he
Yeah,
had a poor start. I think he had some engine problems. So what he said was that just after getting off the start, going through the first few corners, he was looking into the rearview mirror, and I think Kimi was sixth or seventh at that point, and he saw Kimi on his rear view, and he thought to himself, "How bad am I doing that I can see Kimi in my rear view mirror? What's that
uh,
Alpha doing there?"
that was a hilarious start to that. I think it was Portugal Grand Prix. Everyone's
Yeah,
struggling
yeah,
with
yeah. I think it was
modulations on.
Portugal. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
such. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got a silent company with Giovinazzi too, right? He's got some good silent
Yep.
company with Giovinazzi. I think there isn't
Yep.
much public banter between the two, but there's some good teamwork happening there.
Yeah, for sure. I think they are good teammates in the sense that I think they have kind of similar personalities in a way. Giovinazzi does come off a little shy, I would say, and he I think likes to keep to himself a little as compared to other drivers that I've seen. But one thing which I really want to note about Giovinazzi is that he has really proven his place at the team in this
Yeah,
season. I was not quite sure how well he is doing in 2019, but 2020, I think he has been a lot closer to Kimi, even beating Kimi a couple of times in qualification,
yeah.
and they ended up with the same number of points. So yeah, I think kudos to him for earning his place for 2021 as well.
No, he's definitely improved quite a lot coming out of 2019, and you're absolutely right about him being in the shadows in 2019. As like, yeah, there is a second driver, someone's driving that other Alpha, but now there's Kimi and Giovinazzi out there, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, so Alpha overall didn't have that good a season. I think most of their issues were attributed to the Ferrari engine. And as you can see in the driver standing, all the Ferrari B teams suffered a lot. And definitely Haas was the second B team, which were having just a terrible, terrible
Haas
2020
has been having other issues too, right? Like the
season.
consequences of budgeting and finance issues. We've seen
Hmm.
them lose their drivers. Some might say that Haas has not been doing good and the drivers aren't that good, but given their engineering budgets and how they've been managing, I think the team's been doing good. Sure, Grosjean's coined as the incident man on the track, but I think he's had his fair share of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. The unfortunate incident was
Yep.
probably his mistake, but
Hmm. Yeah, no, Grosjean, I think he I'm always very conflicted about this guy. I've seen him do very bad at times, where we had the meme going on of Crash John on Reddit, where he used to crash so many races. But he has had his shining moments, but I think Haas wasn't a good car, and Grosjean, I rate him as a B grade driver compared to all other drivers, and yeah, I'm not too surprised that he somewhat lost his place in the team.
but I
And
don't think
same,
he would have lost it if it wasn't for the budgeting issues. I think
yep,
they would have still continued with their duo. While it may not reflect on the track, I still feel he's got the fire in him that he wants to still, keep fighting for those places and get us somewhere. But it's just unfortunate with that guy because he's had just so many incidents after incidents, either him being part of a chain reaction or him causing one. Yeah, he may
hmm,
not be at the top of the first half of the driver standing in terms of competency, but I mean
hmm,
he's survived there long enough to show that he's still at least got it somewhere to survive at F1. And Magnussen, I feel like he's that
yep.
counter Giovinazzi guy where Magnussen's always the quieter one. He's away from media. What do you think about Magnussen?
Magnussen, I've really never been able to get a gauge on that guy.
Right?
He, yeah, sometimes he seems like a very good guy. Sometimes he seems like an absolute twat. I don't understand that guy. I've seen him perform really well sometimes, and sometimes he is beyond terrible. So I honestly cannot get a gauge on him at all. I've In the years that I've watched, I've always been ambivalent about him, and Yeah, I don't know whether I like him or not, honestly.
Well, you don't get to see him anymore, so
Yep.
I guess
Yeah.
Haas
Well.
is gonna definitely miss him, and folks on the track are gonna miss him. But
Yeah.
as an F1 follower, I never knew much about him. Same like you, so
Mhm.
yeah, someone replaced him.
All right. Let's move on to the last team on the constructors table.
Williams.
That's Williams, and no surprises there. Williams in the 10th position here. I'm kind of glad that they finally have changed ownership from Claire family and moved
Dynasty,
on
you mean?
to yes, uh, and moved on to Darlington Capital as the new owners, because I feel that Williams has had a very long legacy in the sport, and
Yeah.
uh, definitely they were doing great right up till 2016, I think, or 2015, something like that. And from there it just went downhill for them. I wouldn't blame one person, but basically everything went against them, and I'm somewhat glad that they are changing ownership, and I hope that this gives the impetus that they need to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
gain
Yeah.
those points and get ahead on the table.
Yeah, I mean the fire's there, definitely. The drive to succeed is what made Claire still hold on. But I think she saw that it was time, this needed to go. And I'm hoping that with the new ownership at Darlington, there's more budget, there is more engineering resources that come in, and with Russell there, and Latifi, I mean there's a good chance of them sort of bouncing back, right?
Hmm.
So it was unfortunate. When did they lose? I think they lost one of their engineering principals, right?
No, I think
They'd hired one, and
some shenanigans went by for that, but I think they basically made their team principal step down. That's what I think happened. Basically, I think Darlington Capital wanted a more hands-on approach, and they wanted their guys at the helm, and they basically wanted to purge out all the traces of the older management and management styles. So I think it definitely makes
right.
sense with changing the team principles, especially when you're changing owners, especially if the team is doing really bad. I mean, I understand if Williams were somewhere fourth or fifth on the table and they changed owners, and at that point they shouldn't change the team principle. But what I mean, they have nothing to lose at this point. Might as well do
In
it.
terms of drivers, Russell's got that very consistent driving record of being at least ahead of Latifi every single race. Heart goes out for the guy when he got that opportunity to drive for a
Mhm.
Mercedes. Just he would have just I mean, he was this close, right? Oh man, that overtake on Bottas was like, is Hamilton in that car? Because that one of one of those overtakes was just so brilliant. So yeah, that guy's got quite a good career ahead of him. I think all the memes are justified where it's like him sitting and just watching who's retiring at Mercedes so he can go and fill that place.
Yeah.
All those memes get to me.
Though I really hope that he does get a opportunity at Mercedes, because if Hamilton doesn't retire in the coming years, I'm pretty sure there are other teams who are, wanting to get George, especially after his performance back in Shakir Grand Prix.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that George does well and he does get an opportunity at Mercedes, because he does deserve it for sure. He has proven that by now.
Yeah, I mean, and benefit of doubt to Latifi there
Hmm.
too as his teammate
Hmm.
coming in new. He's still getting his feet wet with new
Hmm.
management, new team, new cars. I'm hoping he'll have an amazing season
Hmm.
this year. But 2020 for him was
He was there. He was
yeah,
there.
he was there.
He was the second driver.
But yeah, I mean, overall,
Yeah.
2020 has been quite filled with news. It's been an unusual. surprising, fun, sometimes a bit monotonous, everything that you can hope for that season. Let's do this. I want to know what's your rating on 2020 out
Oh
of
yeah,
10,
for
10
sure.
being the maximum. Like 10 being you had so much fun that you couldn't have hoped for anything else.
um. Okay. I think I'll go with a rating of 8 for me. Especially considering how terrible of an year 2020 was, the difficulties that people have faced, all the crappiness of staying at home and everything. F1 has been one of the things to look forward to pretty much for any F1 fan through this year, and the type of races that F1 has delivered was really awesome. Some of the races obviously were boring, but then if you take a look at the past 5 seasons, that's pretty much majority of the races in those seasons. And if you do a relative comparison of 2020 as compared to the past 5 seasons, I definitely think highly of 2020, and I would give it a rating of 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I'm going to go with a 7 though, where
Hmm.
two of my points go away with that Merc dominance. It gets to me. Um, One's been because of the year that it was, but then all seven to uh, contrary to how the year's been, right? It's just been amazing. It
Hmm.
was like the undulating track that they had, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions, seeing so many folks on podium, dramatic side crashes, bouncing back from them. Yeah, it's been an exciting year. I hope to see more fight at the top going ahead. So yeah, there's some hopes out of 2021.
Yep, I'm pretty excited for 2021.
With that, we're gonna end this episode, folks. We'll come back in the next episode talking about 2021, the new libraries that are out, how the teams think they're gonna do, what's the news and expectations from 2021, and we'll see you all in the next episode.
Goodbye.